Hello all, welcome to the Lunar Sea Spire Cartoon Fan Podcast. This is episode 307, and today I'll be talking about The Ground is Lava from Craig of the Creek. I'm GC13.
And I'm David.
So they actually have an entire video game of The Ground is Lava now. You don't even need to imagine with your friends at the playground anymore.
Kids these days need to watch the episode and be inspired by the game to play in real life. I mean, is this where we're at, though, that kids don't know, and we're having to teach them these traditions? Whatever. I'll take it. Any medium. This is definitely an episode that I think just somehow is universal to at least every... I don't know, this is a very, American kid game. I definitely grew up playing The Ground is Lava. I don't know how we all knew about it. Maybe 40 years ago there was a cartoon that also taught every kid about The Ground is Lava, but I definitely remember it, but there was something really weird about this episode. We've talked about how Craig of the Creek has an unspoken commitment, or at least as far as I know, it's unspoken. I don't think the creators have spoken to this before, that whatever the kids are doing that day, whatever pretend world they're in, we never actually cut to showing that they are playing pretend, right? It's a full commitment to the reality of their imagination. And this episode doesn't do that. It actually cuts away, and I found that really interesting.
Yeah, they're breaking kayfabe. They're killing the business.
Yeah, but so is this the first time that you've ever seen this happen in this show?
It's the first time I can recall. I mean, it certainly would have cheapened, say, The Boy from 3030, had they gone this route.
I did have a negative reaction when it first happened, which is that they're just on the playground and we see the kids writhing around on the pavement, not actually burning in lava. Which, at first I was like, well, maybe they had to do that because the censors saw the kid on the swing set swing through the lava and come out a skeleton, and maybe just the theme was too intense, right? Lava's an intense thing. So, maybe there's some standards and practices in there.
That was a possibility, because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow, this is a really brutal episode. And then, right after that, they cut to the, kids just sitting at, no, stop tickling me. And it's like, oh, okay. Maybe it's not a brutal episode after all.
Right. I mean, I think that very well could have played a part in it.
Yeah, I have my own theory.
Well, so hear me out. I think that Jessica, because we have to establish what it means to, be not playing. I think that having the reality split in this episode sort of helps, explain why Jessica is doing what she's doing. I don't think the moment where she stands on the lava would have the same effect if we had never cut away from it. So I think that plays a role.
That was kind of my thought, that in this episode they had to show the dichotomy between their imagination and the real world because Jessica not playing was such an important part of the episode.
Right. I do think it does something else as well, which is whether or not it's entirely relevant specifically to this episode. At some point, showing the kids actually play acting from, what would be the regular world's perspective kind of gives us an idea of just how committed, children are to playing pretend. That's what struck me is I just suddenly remembered, quote, playing pretend as a kid, 4 or 5 years old. And you just legitimately follow the rules to the T, and Craig is screaming, and him and Kelsey are truly terrified to they're Craig's motivated to quote save his sister, right? Even though in reality he shouldn't feel actually that much of a reason to do so, right? If they were just playing a game. And that the ending, right? He leaps forward and jumps Olympian distance to save his sister. All that commitment is I guess made a little funnier and a little more real, a little more personal by cutting away. So definitely hopefully the only time they make this choice, though. I don't really want to see this become regular. Because also, it's just, you can't really do that joke more than once, right? Something extreme's happening, and then you cut away, and it's, not actually extreme.
I mean, the joke seems to work fairly well in other cartoons. Did that ever get old in Rugrats?
Well, I don't remember that much anymore. Is that basically what Rugrats did? See, my perspective as a kid when I watched Rugrats I was like, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, and I was just frustrated with the babies. I was like, they don't get it. They are ruining their parents' lives.
Yeah, you should rewatch Rugrats. They do that a lot where the babies are having a pretend sequence, and then it'll cut back to the parents watching them, like out the window while they're distracted with something else, and it's like, oh, look, the kids are running around at the backyard again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's like the premise of Rugrats. But are we sure it didn't get old on Rugrats? I don't know. I guess actually Rugrats was kind of like the SpongeBob of its day.
Yeah.
It was just a network king. I mean, that was back when Nickelodeon was still producing like movies. I think Rugrats got 2 in theaters movies. So that's kind of crazy.
Heavy hitter.
Yeah.
A thought that I had based on how happy he was to get out of the game. For the first time, I thought that, did JP send Bobby first because he intended to get himself out after that?
Ooh, that feels very in character with JP, doesn't it? Like he's just ready to take a nap in the grass,
but
play around a bit.
A dirt nap, no less. But then I watched it, but it was Bobby who accidentally put the shoe up, so either JP just saw an excuse and went for it, maybe he was gonna fall on his butt instead, or maybe he didn't plan on it after all, who knows?
I don't know, it was a very, very convenient mistake to have been made. But I also really, really enjoyed from that, because again, it reminded me, I mean, again, the universality of ground is lava struck me in this episode, but then I remembered all the silly rules that we'd come up with, like, yeah, of course if you take off your shoes and throw them, standing on your shoes is a valid way to avoid the lava, but like the way Craig quickly explains it, and it just sounds so rational, but it's not rational, because
I did not get the impression that sounded rational. It sounded like Craig was mocking, or at least the writers were through Craig's voice.
Oh, no,
mocking the fact
absolutely.
that loophole works.
Right, no, it is, but from Craig's perspective, he's talking completely rationally, and I really enjoyed that. The same with then how they, kind of broke that apart a bit when the treehouse fell and they're standing on a wooden plank, and Kelsey's like, isn't this wood plank gonna catch on fire? It was very much like the SpongeBob,
curse you,
like,
Kelsey!
Aren't we underwater?
How could there be a fire if we're under
water? Yeah. But also, okay, we talk about the dangers of the creek. Those kids fell out of a freaking tree. This, quote, 5-star treehouse collapsed because of how many kids went in there. Like, these kids' antics put them in serious danger. They should have gotten hurt, but, maybe the lava padded their fall. I don't know.
Well, David, the important thing is family and friendship, honesty, values, and no one got arrested.
Thanks, Mr. Universe.
No one can ignore the universe.
I think this episode was great and simple and, had a little bit of sibling lesson, but honestly, it was couched in enough meta humor that it wasn't quite just a feel good lessony moment. Craig thinks his sister doesn't understand character design, and he basically puts his relationship with his sister over his feelings about the need to stay true to, the character that you create.
I think the artists on the show were actually having a very interesting thing there, because, when JP and Kelsey both go to add to Extra Tall Paul, it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add this, and they're like, oh yeah, all we see of it is that, oh yeah, he still looks nice, and then she goes on to add her third arm, and we're like, oh, of course that's ridiculous. But then we zoom out as she says, but he already looks stupid, or I can't remember how she phrased it, but yeah, you see that Kelsey and JP are in the process of ruining Extra Tall Paul, so why shouldn't she get to help ruin him?
Yeah, Craig, maybe he didn't have the perspective. He was stuck in the design room, and then when an external influence came in, he just immediately...
There's just an advocacy for simplicity in design there, I think.
Absolutely. Just keep him tall.
You don't want to over-design a character. I remember that Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation likes to talk about characters, especially in JRPGs, as though some concept artist started drawing him and then never stopped.
Yeah, you gotta know when to stop. I don't know if this character was overdrawn, but there was one character design that stuck out to me a lot in this episode. Can you guess who it was?
Are you talking about what was it, Sherman? The gotta share the rations dude?
I don't know if he said that we need to share the rations. It was the kid who suggested his riddle book that was going to keep.
Oh, the troll, yes, from the episode where Craig is helping Kit get some more supplies for the trading tree.
So I definitely haven't watched that episode, and without that, man, that character sticks out. He is honestly terrifying, and his voice is terrifying. So mission accomplished that he's called the troll.
Yeah, this is a kid who, the way he likes to play at the creek is to hide under bridges and asking people to solve riddles, which he has his book full of riddles, and they just brought him back. Everyone loves a callback.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think Craig of the Creek is a show that is definitely, I think I'm experiencing it in one of the intended ways, which is to not just watch every episode sequentially. And, it's really funny to be thrown off like this, because I was like, man, that kid is just the color palette, right? He just sticks out so much because he's, more like a kind of grimy yellow. That's the general aesthetic between his hair and his teeth and his eyes. And I was like, is this kid okay?
Not a lot of sunlight under bridges.
No, very much, I guess are they going for jaundiced? A jaundiced look there?
No, he's way too pale for that.
I guess.
He just looks generally sickly.
Yeah, generally sickly. But I think some sunlight would help break up the scary yellow everywhere. Especially his eyes. He looks like he's on drugs. That's what my initial note said. I was like, bring up drug kid. So, hopefully the kids are not doing anything like that.
You never know what you're going to find under those bridges.
So they did have, I always think what's going to date a cartoon, and it's always meme moments. I still appreciate the kid that dabs right before getting lava'd, but I can't believe that they missed the opportunity with Termon yelling amateurs, because it was just a great I couldn't believe that he didn't just look at them and, that the kids didn't go, what did you say? And then that he would go back and say, amateurs!
No, but I liked the whole nobody dabs anymore.
Yeah, at least they put into the writing that they already knew the joke was dated. That's always a, advantage you can have. I don't know, some jokes are simple enough that I feel like they stand the test of time. Like Steven having his phone in episode 4 Together Breakfast, and his phone breaks. Well, Garnet breaks his phone, and he just screams, my apps. That's, just saying my apps is a great, it's timely, smartphones, but it's a joke that just keeps going. I think it's simple enough. Dabbing, though, if someone's watching this cartoon in 20 years, will they immediately laugh the same way I did? Probably not, but maybe they'll be in on the joke once some other kid calls them out on it. So that's a smart enough thing to do.
Talking about phone-related jokes, I like in OKKO, I will always like him ducks into the payphone booth, which is labeled as a changing room, and KO's like, what's this? As he looks up the phone and then pulls out his smartphone to make some phone calls.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And that joke will only get funnier over time as payphones recede further and further into memory.
Yeah, I mean, I only walk past abandoned. Well, it's even crazy that there are any abandoned ones still where I live downtown, but there are some still. They're just kind of ripped apart looking, though. I don't think you can actually put any coins in them. Some of them are labeled like 10 cents, though. It's just crazy.
Wow.
Dimes. Carrying around dimes like Mr. Krabs. And putting them in. Well, he wouldn't be putting them in. He would have a drawstring.
He would be fishing them out, yeah.
But how many more cartoons can we get in here? I think we've only referenced 6 external cartoons so far, but if we keep going, it might be a record for a podcast episode.
Oh, here, I have a movie and a video game to add to this, because I liked
all right.
when JP was going down into the lava, he did the thumbs up like the Terminator from Terminator, and much more recently
you're right.
as Doom Guy from Doom 2016.
That is a Terminator reference. I was wondering why they lingered on it so much.
So I am wondering how many people are going to watch this and think that it's a reference to Doom and not to Terminator.
That always happens, though, in popular media, right? Like, I thought that All-Star was a song because it was in Shrek when I was a kid, right? Like, I just thought that song was written for Shrek. And it's just, that's the only association I have. Of course, I think that's what everyone my age think. Like, if they hear All-Star, they just think Shrek. And that just happens to some things. And there's definitely references, too, that happen in media like this where you're just going to think it was because of Doom and not because of, a reference that was actually referencing. Oh well.
These things happen.
Yeah, I have a complete random aside that I don't think's worth saying about chalk, but they did draw with chalk at the beginning. Don't put this in. I just have it. I was
Chalk
like,
zone.
there's time. Yeah, we can talk about the chalk because chalk zone. They should do. Oh man, with the
Why didn't they do a Chalk Zone reference?
Here's the thing: Craig of the Creek, a show like Craig of the Creek, has the opportunity to do a crossover anytime, as long as it's in the realm of imagination. And Craig already clearly watches shows like Little Butler on his TV, and there's some kind of shared television universe between Craig of the Creek and Steven Universe and such. But, he could be watching Chalk Zone, and they could have a Chalk Zone episode to resurrect any of these, properties. That could be a thing.
Right now, if we're talking about crossing over, I think it'd be easier to cross over with Cartoon Network properties. And just a thought I just got into my head, and now it won't leave, is that if we can't get Galactic Kids Next Door, then I think Craig and his friends should start a Galactic Kids Next Door game at the Creek so that they can make their own sequel series in one episode.
That is definitely the closest Cartoon Network property that's the first pitch I've heard for a crossover that actually makes a lot of sense. I think the only thing thematically clashing about them is that the Kids Next Door are so much more. They come from such a different world.
But they love tree
supposed
houses.
to respect your parents and like adults in Craig of the Creek. Yeah, they do like tree houses, but they're so much meaner. They're so much more critical of the adults in their world.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, they have ample teen ninjas running around. Oh, that would be fun seeing the witches. They get to trounce some people with some evil teen ninja magic just because, I'm supposed to be a villain? Okay, I can do that.
Speaking of thinking of some continuity here, there were only 2 elders ever present in this episode.
Yes, poor David.
I don't know actually if David made it, so I'm waiting, I guess, to find out.
Get ripped. He was such a young elder.
Yes, he was so young.
And on that somber note, we must end the episode. Join us next week. Until then, I'm GC13.
And I'm David. Don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen, or give us a like on YouTube, where we've now been for a whole year, which is crazy, and I feel super old and gross, and I think I'm going to go take a shower now. Thanks, everybody.
Later, everybody. Our opening and closing music is by Mark Soto. For more cartoon-related content, please visit lunarseaspire.com.